Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lure. On this show, we've been through the entire Deep Blue Sea trilogy, scene by scene. Now looking at some Deep Blue Sea adjacent films. That's films directed by Rennie Harlin, featuring sharks or aquatic action, or, as occasionally happens, we cover a film that sounds like it's going to have aquatic action, and just actually doesn't. Because today we're talking about Lake Mungo. Lake, it's got a lake in the title. You might think, hey, water-based horror film, Lake Mungo. We had the same thing with Deep Water, that Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas film that features like a swimming pool scene and then a bunch of slugs. But we're talking about Lake Mungo today. What is Lake Mungo? It is a 2008 Australian found footage horror film featuring a family who go. The Palmer family go to a dam. They go swimming at a dam. And their daughter, Alice, disappears. Did she drown? Yes. But there's mysterious happenings going on after that where, like, after she's gone, she's still hanging around. And hilarity ensues from the events that occur after that. So I need somebody who, when I messaged her and said, would Lake Mungo be a good Deep Blue Sea episode? She's like, yes. Yes, it would. An outright
I just wanted to be on again.
She's been on. This is her sixth time on the show. We forgot to recently induct Emily Slade into the Five Timers Club. Which, Lisa, you've been in the Five Timers Club. You're now leaving. You're entering the Six Timers Club which has
I'm
one
just
other
creating
person
my own
in
club.
it. Two other people, I guess, Nick and Megan. So she's been on for chapters of Deep Blue Sea and Deep Blue Sea 3, Santa Jaws, Orca, Exorcist: The Beginning, and now Lake Mungo. It's Lisa Leahy. Lisa, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. And now I'm wondering, I don't think I realized when you asked me that you were asking me whether it would be a good episode. I thought you had already decided and you're like, hey, do you want to be on? And I was like, absolutely.
I mean,
I
kind
misunderstood.
of. I hadn't seen Lake Mungo at that point. It sounded like an episode we should cover. I didn't really know much about it.
I'm going back to the chat. I want to see what you said.
Sure. Let's find the receipts.
Oh, this is funny.
I'll let you find them. But I knew it was a found footage film featuring a lake of some kind, and that you were a fan of it because I had never heard of this film until you brought it up on a Lambcast episode,
Yeah,
I think.
you do in fact say, do you think Lake Mungo would make for an interesting discussion on a Deep Blue Sea podcast?
I mean, you could.
And I said, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I could have worded that more accurately to be like, is this relevant for a Deep Blue Sea discussion? Or will...
I mean, there's a lake.
Yeah.
Well.
Will 15 minutes into it, I be annoyed?
I'm sorry.
No, it's absolutely fine.
This will be my sixth and final time on
Not
this
at
podcast.
all. Not at all. Absolutely not. There are plenty more films, I'm sure, that are more relevant. We will find you.
Well, now that I understand what you're asking me, I will definitely be better at choosing next time.
Well, I mean, yeah, the last thing we were on was for Exorcist: The Beginning, which is only Deep Blue Sea adjacent because it's directed by Rennie Harlin. So, Rennie Harlin's career.
I mean, there's water on the cover of this. The cover art has water, like there's splashing.
I mean,
it's reminiscent of like Jaws. It's reminiscent of like the woman in the beginning of Jaws, right? Being torn around. Like she looks very upset that she's in the water. So I mean, that works, right?
And like Lake Mungo, not the only body of water in the film. That's not where she drowns. That's a different place. So
entirely different place.
Okay, so let's get into. Before we get into Lake Mungo, this is a found footage film. I understand you are a fan of found footage films.
Yes, very much.
What is it about them that compels you to watch them?
I really don't know. I think it's funny because I really can't tell you what it is. I love the format of it. I don't get motion sick, really. So I guess that's a big deal. Like if you got motion sick, I'd be less inclined to like these so much. Ironic fun fact, though, I can't watch an IMAX movie because that makes me queasy. But I don't know, like there's something interesting about an atypical narrative format. I've always been drawn to unreliable narrators. I've always been drawn to, scrambled chronologies, atypical chronologies, and that's typically how a found footage film works. I think I like the sort of rough around the edges kind of element to it.
Sure.
I like that we find things out as the characters find things out. I don't know. There's just something about it that really appeals to me. I especially love the on the screen kind of found footage, like
Yeah.
Unfriended
Searching.
or
The John Cho
what did
one,
you say?
searching. The John
Yeah,
Cho.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Searching is amazing.
Excellent one.
Those kinds of things I think I'm definitely in on those. Host from 2020 is
Yep.
outstanding.
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, so I like a narrative that keeps me guessing. I like something that sort of meanders along, and this definitely does that. So I'm a fan.
It does. It does. I find some of those elements frustrating. I think
Okay.
I do enjoy a found footage film. I've said before on the show, Paranormal Activity is the film that has scared me the most in
Oh, I
all of
love it.
film. Just because the one time I've watched that was my first time watching it. I watched it in a dark room. I was laying on a bed with a laptop positioned at the end of the bed where the camera is in Paranormal Activity, which is an
Oh,
awful
interesting.
way to watch that film. That was not intentional. I was just like, this is the setup I have available to me to watch this film. I need to review this film. I watched it. I was scared out of my mind.
Oh,
So, which there's
see, and I would say that you watched it in the way like a lot of people watch it, and people find it boring.
yeah,
Um, and I think that those are the films that you need to watch with a crowd of people in a theater,
sure.
because I got to see it with a whole bunch of people, and you could feel everyone holding their breath at the same time. So
I've seen very few horror films in cinema. Like growing up,
it's not really your thing, right?
well, I host a podcast that's kind of become a horror podcast in a way,
It
which
seems that way. Well, because now you're starting to grasp at straws.
I mean, there's still plenty of shark films out there, but we're trying to mix it up a bit here and there. But yeah, kind of. But like, if you go back 10 years and tell me that you're going to be hosting a horror podcast, but like, no, ridiculous. What are you talking about? But I do enjoy horror films. I don't get scared by them very often. Like Paranormal
Same.
Activity is one. The Shining is the first one that scared me because that was like the first horror film I watched, and I was
Hmm.
15. So I just like got to this age where I was just like Disney films, action films. Hey, what's this one? What am I
Yep.
watching? What am I? No, and I didn't watch horror films for
Never
like 5
recovered.
years. Um, yeah, that was a problematic time. Um, but I do enjoy certain kinds of horror films. The more fun ones, the ones with the deep blue seas, the horror world, the ones with the
Of
which
course.
deep blue sea, not a scary film, but it has
Right.
horror elements. And same with it, Jaws, Jurassic Park. These have horror elements. Creature features is what I'm getting at. I like creature
Definitely.
features.
There you go.
I like slashers. I like films with annoying people who get killed in creative ways, which
Yes.
isn't the case with Lake Mungo. Lake Mungo has
No.
a death. Uh, not very creative. She drowns. There's no
Yes.
like super. There's not really any supernatural forces at work. You don't know. There's no shark. I went into
Hmm.
this thinking,
There
okay,
is no shark.
this is an Australian horror film. There's going to be crocodiles. There's going to be alligators. There's going to be all manner of creatures. Not an animal to be seen. The whole film.
None. It's not a creature film. I'm sorry, Jay.
No, you're fine. You're fine. That's my own bias on Australian cinema. Like you have so many animals. Every film should have killer spiders and scorpions and who knows what else. But
Yes.
no.
And I will
So
not watch any of them.
are you not a creature feature fan?
I like a creature feature, but I do not indulge in anything with fewer than two legs and more than four.
Sure. Okay.
So at that point, I have to draw the line. Big
Okay.
fan of like a Lake Placid, big fan of like Alligator and Godzilla and like, Cloverfield, big fan of those things. When you start getting into the creepy crawlers and the snakes and things, I'm good. I'm gonna check out.
Where do sharks fit on that list? Because they have no legs.
That's true. I'm actually okay with the aquatic ones.
Okay.
I'm okay with the aquatic animals. Because they are where I am not.
So
So I'm
if
okay with that.
if a shark suddenly sprouted one leg, you're not nodding. Thank you.
I think it would have a very easy time like coming after me because I would
Just hopping.
fall on the ground laughing and that's it. I would just Can you imagine just kind of bouncing like pogoing toward you? That would just be amazingly
Oh,
funny.
yeah, that's the next sci-fi film. Uh, Unishark. I guess.
You
I don't
I
know.
think we need to make this movie. We will make billions.
Absolutely. So, yeah, so, Lake Mungo, not the kind of film that I would. When I first watched it, I watched it twice in preparation for this show. I like arms folded, annoyed at the screen. Like, this isn't what I wanted to be watching. But then when I knew what it was and went back and watched it again, I could appreciate more for what it is. And I apologize to the film for that first viewing. And this is, I think, a very incredibly well made uh,
Yes.
found footage film, especially action wise. Action and production for this are incredible. This is entirely saying they're a no name cast feels insulting, but it's a cast of actors who I've never seen in anything ever. Most of whom
Hmm.
don't have photos next to them on IMDb. So which I think
Right.
which is key for this kind of film, isn't it? You don't want to go into this and, oh, it's Brad Pitt. That would take you out of it. Like, it needs to be people you don't recognize.
Right. Well, this was an After Dark movie. So there was in the early 2000s they started this After Dark Film Festival. And I don't know the ins and outs of it, unfortunately, because I obviously didn't see any of these in the theater, but it started off where it's like 8 films to die for kind of thing. So I think
Okay.
what they did is this company found these like little independent horror films and decided we're gonna like collect them and release them. And so I think some theaters actually did screen them. Nobody did where I am, but I became aware of them because I would go to Best Buy and like, look at the various DVDs. And the first year I discovered them, they had all 8 of these films for about $3 or $4 a piece.
Okay.
So I was like, I am going to buy all of them because I don't even care. I can get 8 horror movies. They've been selected for some reason. Let me watch them. And so, I found a couple of really good ones, found a couple of crappy ones, but for $3 or $4 a piece, it was cool. It was like,
Sure.
I'm in.
Yeah.
This is great. And so the following year, same thing. And so they were like $5 a piece at this point. They were starting to like get some momentum. So same thing, bought them all again. The third year, which I believe was the Lake Mungo year, I showed up at Best Buy. I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm going to get my $5 8 movies, and they were $17 a piece.
Oh.
And I was like, what are you talking about? What happened? And I asked one of the guys who worked there, and he's like, no, we've never done that. I'm like, I'm telling you, you have, because I have 16 movies that prove you did this. And I think the After Dark Horror Fest only lasted maybe 1 or 2 years after that. Like they stopped doing all of these things for one
Yeah.
reason or another. Um, in fact, I want to say the Autopsy of Jane Doe might have been another After Dark Horror Fest, which is
Okay.
another really big, like, great indie horror film. It is not, it is not deep. It is not blue. There is no sea. There is no shark. There is no Rennie Harlan. So it's not
Crossing it
going to
off
show
the
up here.
list.
But
Yep.
just gotta tell you, it can't happen. But this one is one of the ones that's really got legs. Like this one has got people's attention, and it has kind of surpassed being part of the horror fest, because this is the one that's all over the place. Like you'll see this one recommended by horror authors, other independent films. Jordan Peele is a big fan of
Yes.
this film, I know. Stuff like that comes up all the time. So that's kind of why you don't know anybody in it, because it was probably this tiny little film that somebody, made with a couple of bucks, and got this exploded sort of attention, really.
I think that works to the film's benefit. Of like it feels very realistic and very real. And like you could we kind of mentioned in passing on a recent episode, Mermaids the Body Found. Have you seen that? Mermaids the Body Found?
No.
That's another like mock. It's kind of found footage. It's like a fake documentary about someone finding the body of a mermaid. It was put on the Discovery Channel, and people thought it was real. And
Oh
it's
my
like,
goodness.
yeah, it's kind of not a great idea to have done this because there's a whole cult of people like, well, of course they're saying it's not real. That's just what they want you to think. Like,
Yeah,
well,
there it
that's
is.
there's yeah,
Becomes
the
part of the great conspiracy theory.
the Discovery Channel, the wrong place to have put that. This nature
Yeah.
documentary, but Mermaid's Body Found is actually really good. It spawned a sequel and a whole franchise. It's like a Megalodon episode. We haven't covered it yet, but it's one that I think you would get a kick out of, and it's similar to this one where it's all like not known actors, um, and it just the production value is pretty great for what it is.
I am looking at images of it online, and I cannot wait to get my hands on this
Well,
thing.
the CGI is terrible because it's like a recreation. It's not supposed to be real footage of it. It's like this is an artist's rendition of the mermaid, kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
recreations are always terrible.
yeah, as that's fine. It's made on a budget. That's a budget within a budget. That's a film within a film at that point. So like that's a budget. That's a square root of a budget. But
You just have to choose where to put your money, and they chose
yes,
not to put it in
they
the
chose
effects.
elsewhere. Yeah. Um, which Lake Mungo doesn't really have that problem because it is the lowest tech. All the cameras are the cheapest. They're like Nokia phone cameras from the early 2000s, which to be fair, this is made in 2008. That camera phone probably still works because it's Nokia. You cannot break them.
Exactly.
And so the effects you have there, it's a figure is in a photo. That's the effect. That's all there is. It's like
That's all there is
someone
to
made
it.
up to look dead, and they charge at the screen.
Yep.
There is one jump scare, and it's effective. It's like, oh, that looks weird. Oh, it's yeah. I think just having one, that's where some films go wrong, is they have too many. Like, if you're not
I
expecting a
agree.
jump scare, that's when it works. Ugh. It's not a nice
Yeah.
image. I have no idea what images I'm going to use from this film for the things I post on social media because I need 4 distinct images for Lake Mungo, and I have like 2. But I'll
I
find
can help
something,
you with
I'm
that.
sure.
I can help you with that, I think.
For like, just have 4 different photos, like blurry photos of Alice.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly. Photos of
yeah.
maybe a chair.
Is it a chair? Is it?
You could
But
get a photo of the Nokia phone.
yes, absolutely. Or I liked the diary page, which is like Lake Mungo, Lake Mungo, Lake Mungo, Lake Mungo,
That's a
because
good one. That's a good one to use.
we'd never heard the lake. We know it's the title of the film. We've never
Hmm.
heard that lake mentioned. I had
Nope.
like incorrectly assumed that that was the lake that she had drowned in at the start because like they kept talking about a dam, but this is a lake, and but no, when we get to that diary page, it's like oh here we go. This is unraveling now, and it
Well,
kind
this
of
is the
does.
irony of the thing because it's a dry lake. It's like where there once was a lake. It is anti-lake. So I mean, you
Yes.
may have a new winner in some of your categories you
Oh,
deal with at the end of this film.
we'll get there, but this would have a long way to go to be the highest.
All right.
Actually, our current highest film, if I gave you 100 guesses, you'd never get it, is the animated film Shark Tale. That is the highest film because that opens with the DreamWorks logo, which
Oh,
becomes, which not I don't really count logos as having a height, but
that was going to be my next question.
it becomes part of the narrative because the boy in the DreamWorks logo is up on the moon and he casts a fishing line with a worm on it that lands in the ocean, and then a bunch of sharks have a combination where they should eat that worm. So the DreamWorks logo on the moon is diegetic to the actual, and I have to count those 3 seconds as being up in space. I have to
It
count it.
works.
Therefore, it is on average almost 700 miles up in the air. Sorry,
That's kind of brilliant.
700,000 feet up in the air. Sorry. But yeah, it's disappointingly our highest film.
I
We
like
don't.
that though. I like that that's the highest because it's just this complete 180 from what you expect. I
If
love
you
it.
don't factor in the credits, it's the 7th deepest. So
I love that you
those.
even know that.
I
That
mean,
you
I've
don't
got
take in the production logo.
I got a spreadsheet. I'm a cool person. So I'm just a regular guy with a spreadsheet on how deep Shark Tale is. We all have
I
them.
love it. The
So,
research that goes into this podcast is astonishing.
it's maddening if you ask my wife. But she's not here, so that's fine.
She isn't there. Nope. No judgment whatsoever.
So I really appreciate all the acting in Lake Mungo. All of because these are real people. They felt like real people. The kind of the chemistry between the families in the photos that are posed that look posed, but like elements of them don't look posed. Like there's one shot of Alice and her brother Matthew. just kind of playing, and their mother June is kind of off to the side and giving them like a "what are you doing" kind of look, and that's so naturalistic. I really want to
Yes.
see some of the behind the scenes of like, did they all just kind of live as a family for like 2 weeks and go on vacation and go on just live in a house and just were filmed the whole time? Are
Maybe.
there any performances that kind of stood out to you that you were a fan of? Any moments?
Not specifically, no. I think it's interesting because I think that the most that you get out of any character is what somebody else says about them.
Sure.
Like you think about various sequences, like you talk about the father having that moment where like like he sees Alice, he calls her Allie, and then like it's the mother who says that she walks into the room and he's sobbing uncontrollably. So it's interesting because the editing, they choose to tell that story through multiple points of view. And I think it's cool that it's not, is his name Russell? I feel like I should know this.
Yes, Russell
Um,
Shaddad. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. So it's not Russell telling us that I completely fell apart, I couldn't get it together. It's somebody else who encounters him after that moment and is like, he was inconsolable. We didn't know what to do. Like, we knew something had upset him. And then after he calms down. And, so I find it interesting that they choose to tell it through multiple voices. It's an exceptional mockumentary format. Like this is what a quality documentarian will do. Like they edit so well and everything is like layered so pristinely, that it unfolds in such a way that you can't help but be carried along by it. Like that's what I think is so interesting about documentaries in general. And then you get one that's not real, you can tell that the directors are very big fans of it. And now I'm veering off from your original question, which was, which of the acting did you really like? But
Yeah, it works.
I don't know. I like the work done here just because it is so real. It feels very real.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, that's kind of all we have in this film is people talking to the camera. It's
Hmm.
watching this kind of candid footage. So it all needs to be realistic. I appreciate the amount of time. Like this is one of the lowest budget films we've covered. It's got to be like 1.7 million
Hmm.
is what's listed on Wikipedia. Which I mean, actually we've probably covered. I don't know how like Open Water is probably the lowest budget because it's one of the lowest budget films ever made.
Yes.
But a similar kind of style to this, where it's just kind of gritty, realistic, low budget, and looks not great at times. But it's not supposed to. I don't know. But yeah, so
Well, I mean,
Russell's.
that definitely feeds into what you're dealing with too. Like a lot of that, like Skinamarink, like the idea of, do I see something? Do I not see something? It's a lot of that psychological play on your brain, I think, as a viewer.
I didn't see Skinamarink, and I'm okay with that.
That is that, yeah, I don't know that you're gonna like that. If you get frustrated with this one, I don't know. I don't
I,
know.
I I need to kind of pick and choose what horror films I because my wife won't watch horror films, which is fine. It's not for everyone. So I
Yeah,
need to like wait. She's not currently home for a few days this week, so I had to wait and watch like Mungo when she wasn't here. Which fine.
got it.
Tomorrow I'm gonna watch a shark film because she doesn't want to watch it, and we'll come to cover it eventually on this show. So
I love it. Everything
yeah.
is scheduled out to the minute.
So if like Skinamarink comes out and people say, oh, this is great, and I look into it, I think I can probably skip this one. And yeah, it doesn't happen. Whereas I'll make time for uh, the one that everyone loved, Barbarian. I'll make time for Barbarian because Barbarian
Oh,
rocks.
yes.
It's great. It's phenomenal.
Yes,
I went
that
to
one
the
is a
cinema to see
definite.
that
You
one.
must see that.
Yeah, I did. I loved it. Uh,
Oh my God.
I left the house to see it. That's how much I wanted to see that
That worth it.
one. Yeah. So what I what I found frustrating about Lake Mungo is okay. You mentioned Host earlier. I think Host is great because Host is very much a found footage. It's in the moment. It's not like edited together. It's like this is a Zoom call that's happening right now. Where Lake Mungo frustrated me was someone has pieced this together after the events and they're telling a story in a kind of documentary format where they're talking to people who know more than we do. And it's edited together in a way that it's taking you down a path. And like, oh, there's these full spoilers, listeners. We recommend you go and see Lake Mungo. Okay.
Yes.
Spoilers from this point on. They take like these images appearing in the photos, and
Hmm.
there's this figure at the lake, and there's Bob Smeet, some random guy taking pictures of it to check the depth of the dam, and there's a figure in the background looks like Alice, and it turns out it's her brother. It's Matthew. He's wearing
Right.
Alice's jacket. He got really. I could see this coming, where after she died, he got really into photography, and
Yeah.
and as the film goes on, the quality of the images get better and better. I was like, okay, and it turns out, yeah, it's Matthew, because his mother June didn't identify the body. She didn't have that closure, so Matthew wanted to cause the body to be exhumed. So he this is a real elaborate plan to go to. I think I mean, it worked in the narrative of the film, but he
It does.
edited.
It does work. Yeah.
He
I think
doctored
he was.
images.
So it's interesting because they do say that. It's like, well, why did you do it? And he's kind of like, well, I don't think he did it specifically to exhume her. Although I do agree that you're right. Like, mom didn't have the closure, and I think this idea that there is something after death is something that's appealing to everyone. Um, Most people. I don't want to say everyone. But to most people, this idea of having proof of life after death, I think there's something to it. So I can see where like he would do this as sort of a way of saying, look, mom, she's still here, she's watching for us, like that kind of stuff. And I think it
Yeah.
just got out of hand.
Yeah, because he's like doctoring photos, he's doctoring videos, he's
Yeah.
taking a video recording he has of Alice and playing it in a mirror and taking a picture of the mirror.
Yeah,
And
that was crazy.
which like, hey, props to the guy for ingenuity and creativity in faking all this stuff. So it turns out that he did that. So that kind of backtracks against the past 20 minutes of film we've watched. And then they bring in this professional charlatan, what's his name, the medium Ray,
Yes.
who like they bring him in to do a seance, and the seance doesn't work, and the brother's filming the seance, and then he doctors in images of that after that, and it turns out that the medium had spoken to Alice 5 months before she died, which we don't find out until
Yes.
like near the end of the film. I'm like, wow. I get why they're structuring it this way, but I found it frustrating knowing that I'm not watching something that's true. Like this is all a conjured narrative, but being told in a way that is making me frustrated. And
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I
And
find
then
that a
sorry.
lot of true crime documentaries do this though. Like they lead you down the wrong path. It's kind of like modeling the investigation, but in a much cleaner way. Like,
Right.
like police will investigate this particular lead and that particular lead, and a lot of them will turn into a dead end or they'll turn into be absolutely not at all what you thought it was. And I kind of like that they give you all of these little bait pieces that you can bite onto and sort of follow through, and like they explain a lot of things. And I actually was okay with the professional charlatan having spoken with Alice, because I totally bought the idea of like confidentiality. I was like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm
yeah.
with you on that. Um, and I think that ending part is the stuff that I like best, where it's like, okay, here's the stuff that we can't figure out. And obviously that's why it's last, right? Like they can explain away the fact that it was actually Matthew at the dam, and that picture is just, him with Alice's jacket, and he doctored the photo of her standing in the backyard and all other stuff. But when you start getting into this sort of overlay of dreams and this sort of potential that time has folded on itself a couple of times in this family's life, I think that's fascinating. I think that's really cool.
I mean, I agree with all of that.
That wasn't frustrating you, those parts.
No, that wasn't frustrating me. I mean,
Just the idea of being led down a bunch of those roads that you didn't like and ended up being nothing.
yes, yeah. So I've not really watched any true crime documentaries or listened to any true crime podcasts. I get the huge fan base for them. I've just never dipped a toe in that water. Uh,
Sure.
so I mean, I assume they're showing the procedure of solving a case. This is the progress that the police, the detectives are going on, so they're going to take you down that too. Great.
Hmm.
Okay, that makes sense. And there's maybe a few too many like red herrings in the Lake
Yeah.
Mungo. Like there's the neighbors who came in who like
That one
that
was
that
weird.
threw me for a loop. It's like, wait a
That
minute.
one was that was so wedged in there. And I'm like, okay.
So you just try to
Um,
drag this out to an hour and a half? You're wedged in as 10 minutes of the neighbors had sex with her.
That's pretty much what it was. It was just like, oh, all right. But I mean, what I like about this is it does have those chilling moments where it's like, okay, here's the shot of like, this is where the brother ran by the screen and, oh, it turns out it's her in a reflection. But then it's like, hey, look, there's a creepy dude in the frame over there hiding behind her chair or her mirror or something. And you're like,
The brother was
"Yee."
in a different state. It couldn't be him. It definitely couldn't be him.
Oh,
Although I
no.
did like when and like the medium Ray takes Matthew away on a
Medium
road
rare.
trip. Takes Matthew
Yes.
away on a road trip, and he comes back. And when he comes back, Matthew then looks at the footage, and then he shows them. And like, dude, you looked at the footage doctors at insurance people last time. You being away doesn't make you innocent at this point.
You can still doctor stuff after the fact. It's so right.
It's all you've done.
Yep.
So yeah, them coming back, and it's the neighbors trying to get this VHS tape of yeah, the sex tape hidden in her, yeah, whatever. That was a
Such a weird tape.
whole loop. And then
Yeah.
so
You don't
the
expect to see porn in your horror movies, but occasionally when they're not by Eli Roth, it happens.
yes, and so yeah, and Ray, there's like a few shots where it kind of looks like are they trying to insinuate that Ray is making a move on the kids? So like when he goes to see Alice, they like zoom in on him holding her hand. And then there's like he's taking Matthew on this road trip, just the two of them. What are they? And then they just cut Ray out of their lives when they find out that he'd seen Alice before. But second time I watched this, I missed it first time around when they call up Ray, the medium. The first thing we see is him talking to Alice. They don't hide it. That's the first. But I just kind of glossed over that. I guess I didn't. Maybe I
Yeah,
thought
well,
it
when you
wasn't
first
Alice.
watch it, there's so much to keep up with
Yeah.
that, they're kind of expecting that you're not going. I mean, it's like watching how many different films when, like, the films that are really well made, like this one, um, all of those breadcrumbs are there to begin with. Like, if you go back, like, you think, oh, they doctored that photo. That wasn't there before. No, it's been there. They misdirected you. It's like a
Yeah.
brilliant magician doing their thing on stage. They're like, well, if you look over here, you won't pay attention to this thing over here. Um, but then when you go back, you're like, damn it, like it was all there the first time.
It,
It's outstanding watching films like that.
it reminded me of that Too Many Cooks. Did you see Too Many Cooks when that happened? Yeah, where like
I
you go
haven't
back and
seen
watch
it, but I
it.
know the phrase.
Well, there's like the fake intro to a sitcom called Too Many Cooks. It's like a
I
10
don't know
minute.
it.
Okay, this is right up your street.
Okay.
I just you need to watch it and you need to watch it again, basically, because there's like elements in it that you don't see until later, and yeah. It's like 10 minutes long. It starts off as being a fake intro to a sitcom called Too Many Cooks. And then
Oh, okay, I've got it.
it unravels. And yeah, that's, you need
Well,
to
if it's
watch that.
Adult Swim, I can see where this is gonna go. All right, saved.
Maybe. But yeah,
You gotta love Adult Swim, so yeah.
yes, I won't elaborate anymore on how it's like Too Many Cooks, but listeners may already know. I don't know.
I
So
love going into things having no idea.
Yes, I mean that normal. You and I are both very much in favor of don't watch the trailer. Go in as blind as you
Yes.
can, and that may
Yes.
have burned me here. That wasn't the best approach to Lake Mungo, because Lake Mungo you need to be in the right kind of mood for some of these films. And I think if you're
Mhm.
going and expecting Deep Blue Sea and you get Lake Mungo,
Sharks and Deep Blue Sea. Yeah, I'm sorry.
no, I guess it's not your fault at all. It's far more my like. I'm able to look up a film before I watch it. I chose
Yeah.
not to.
No, but I get it. It's the kind of thing. And that's what I think happened with The Village. Like everybody carries on about how bad The Village is, M. Night Shyamalan, and it's because it was advertised wrong, right? It's advertised as a horror film, and it's definitely not. But that's a whole other tangent we don't have time for.
I like the horror elements of The Village quite a lot. Like the creature design is great.
Yes.
The only thing that frustrates a little bit is the very ending.
Oh, I love
Just
the whole
find it-
thing. I'm a Shyamalan fan, though, so
Hey, me too. Mark and I both really like him. I actually I think Mark's Shyamalan, like his we don't say guilty pleasure, but the one that he vouches for that no one else does is The Happening, whereas I really like Lady in the Water.
I did Lady in the Water with him. I was on
great.
his podcast talking about Lady in the Water.
we'll talk about it on here one day, I'm sure, because
Yes.
if we can do Lake Mungo, we can do Lady in the Water.
Yes, we can.
There's an underwater scene.
There are weird creatures in the water. Yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
I mean, we
The
could.
blue world.
I'm semi pitching a Shyamalan miniseries because we could do Old as well, which I've never seen. I've
Ooh,
not seen Old, but I know
yes.
it's on a beach, it's water
It's a
everywhere.
ride. It's a
Uh,
ride.
I think I know everything that happens in it, but I just haven't seen it.
Yeah,
And
that's fair.
there's like aquatic scenes in like
Yes.
Signs is all about water, and Unbreakable is
True.
all about water.
I
We
love
can
the way
twist
this
this
is lining
somehow.
up. Yes. This is
Yeah.
amazing.
So we can do like a Shyamalan month at some point, I'm sure.
That's outstanding. I love it.
When
Do it.
Trap comes out, maybe. Oh, well, this year's schedule is, yeah, at some point we'll do it. Yeah. So there are a few phrases I really appreciate in Lake Mungo. The term of Alice saw a ghost, she saw her own ghost, she saw the future coming to get her.
Hmm.
Is like that stuck with me. Like you see a
Yeah.
ghost of the future coming to get you. Like Jesus
It's
Christ,
scary. Yes.
that's just
And I
awful.
love, like, it's just this girl, like, walking out essentially into the desert, it looks like. It's like,
Yeah.
where is she going and where are the teachers? Like, nobody is watching these
Yeah,
kids.
this is a school trip. This is
Yes.
but yeah, just she sees her own drowned corpse
Hmm.
coming to get her
I mean, that's
5 months
unsettling. And I
before
love
it
that she
does.
even thinks of, like, burying the phone. I'm like, I don't know that I would have. The other thing I remember watching it again is just being like, she doesn't scream. You would have heard me in Timbuktu. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I would have been screaming like crazy. She doesn't scream. You just hear the shuffling as she gets away. I'm like,
So,
that's probably the most unbelievable part.
I saw this my own bloated dead corpse coming to get
Yeah,
me. I'm gonna bury my necklace
yeah. And watch.
and phone. Yeah,
I'm gonna
the three most
defeat
precious.
time by burying it.
Yep. And my phone has a clock on it, therefore I bury that. And my necklace, I don't know. I like it, so I'll
Do you
bury it.
think so? Like, here's what I wonder because we don't know from Alice. Do you think she recognized it as herself? Because
Um,
even the father's like, it didn't look like her.
I don't think she necessarily did. I think whether that's yourself or not, it's a scary thing to see coming out of the
Yeah,
dark.
definitely.
I don't think I'd have the same reaction of bury my phone and watch. I
No.
would have been similar to you, with more just like fleeing in the opposite direction
Yes.
until I arrived home. At which point
Yeah, but that's
I'd
just
board
it.
up the
And then she
windows.
stays there. Like, I'm sorry. I'm gonna tell somebody. I'm like, I need to go home. Even if I'm
It'll,
not like, you won't let me or whatever, I'm not gonna be like just sitting there and not tell a soul. How many people would I show that phone to? Come on.
yeah, her friends are all having a great time, and she just looks a little concerned. And that's
She's a little morose. Like,
she's
this is
just
some
not
stuff
feeling
that's
herself
unrealistic.
today.
Yeah. I mean, my God,
Yeah.
nowadays I mean, almost what, 20 years later here with this film, that thing would be on Snapchat immediately.
Oh,
Snapchat. I don't even think
it'd
they
just
use
be
Snapchat. Instagram.
yeah, it'd be like fake, 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 fake. Like it's just
All the negative comments.
yeah.
Ugh.
I actually watching this, I realized that Alice and I the same age. I also was 16 in 2005.
Oh.
Wait, no, I was 18. Damn, I
Nope.
was her brother's age. Close
You were
enough.
older.
Yeah. So
But you've made it. You are here. You have made it beyond Alice's age. So
yes,
you're
I
safe.
did. Well, congratulations to me, and to all of you
Yes.
who get to listen to me having survived this long. How long will I survive? Only time will tell. Uh,
That'll be the next percentage we have to work with. That'll be a new podcast.
yes, yeah, as her dad says in this, he doesn't think anyone truly believes they're going to die. I think is something
Hmm.
he says. Which, if you go back to the early days of my blog of Life versus Film, I started out doing that because I thought I was going to die at 28. I just had this
Oh,
premonition that was when I was going to die, and I was going to try and watch all of the films on the 1,001 movies that you must see before you die list before I died. And that was 8 years ago. So
wow.
I survived that premonition that I whatever that meant, and I didn't. Cross off all.
Okay.
I didn't even get halfway off the
Two
list.
weird little
Yeah,
near-death things here, Jay. I'm
sure.
starting to worry about you.
Just two, just for now. Uh,
That's so interesting. I didn't know that to where the blog started. That's cool.
well, I missed homework. I like finished school, I finished university, in the evenings I'd have nothing to do. And
Hmm.
my wife, then girlfriend, was like, "You should review films. You like films." So she got me that 1001 book for Christmas. I started a blog, and I think she's regretted it ever since. Uh,
This is great because every time you can do it, you can just like kind of fire back
oh,
at her and be
I
like, "Hey, this was
do,
your
I
idea."
do. And when Dylan retired from hosting the Lambcast, and he said,
Hmm.
"Jay, do you want to host it?" I asked my wife, "Do you mind if I do this?" She said, "I think that'd be a great idea." And yeah, so every podcast since then, she cannot complain. So this is how you do it, folks. If you get your partner's approval, they can never be annoyed with you. They can
That's it.
just be annoyed with themselves for agreeing to it in the
Yep,
first place.
that is true. That is very, very true.
If you want to do something, trick your partners into letting you. That's
I like it.
how you do things.
It just shuts down every potential argument for the rest of time. I love it.
Yep. On the counter side, never let them do anything. Never agree to anything. They'll hold it
Yeah,
over
you
you.
can't say yes. They have to say yes to you.
They'll hold it over you forever.
I love it. That's so good.
So I don't actually have many more notes for Lake Mungo. I don't think there's an awful lot to actually discuss here because I'd like to go through the deaths, and there aren't. There's the one.
It's
So
there aren't a lot of deaths
there's
now.
not a lot
What
of
do you
plot.
think? Like, so do you think that? So it's not a. Let me try and put that again together again. Words are hard. Um, do you think it's a horror film?
Yes, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what else it would be. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's, I don't know. I think it's like more suspense.
yeah. I think the horror category is an umbrella that you can put suspense and thriller and
True.
a lot of other things under. So
I can just see this not as something that would actually scare people.
I wasn't scared, but then Jordan Peele says this is one of the scariest films he's ever seen.
Oh, that's true. He
I
did. He
can't
did say
find
that.
that quote anywhere, but I've seen it reported that he said it. So
Yeah, that's why he's a big fan. I don't know. I think it just has to do with like being confronted with your own mortality. Um,
it's
I don't
creepy.
know.
I'll give it that.
It
Yeah.
is. It's definitely, there's a number of times when this is just sort of like chills down your back kind of thing. But I think you're right. There's a certain element of when you rewatch it and you know, well, this part's not real and this part's not real and this part's not real. It sort of takes the wind out of the sails and then you're kind of appreciating it more than being afraid of it.
Yeah.
Um, do you think, because at the end they're suggesting that there's overlap in the dreams, right? So do you think the dreams that Alice was having were like futuristic? Like she's been seeing the future for such a point in the last couple of years of her life.
I,
Do you think all that's legit?
I think that's what they're trying to suggest in the film. Because she has the seeing her future dead self, so
Right.
having the premonition of her mother's dream, and then her mother, it's kind of her premonition of her mother having the same vision, but there's also one of the videos that we see.
So
Matt,
mom had a nightmare of Alice standing at her bed and starting to cry,
yeah,
which Alice says was real. Like that was something that did happen. She was having nightmares and she went to go see her mother and they were sleeping and she just had this feeling come over her of being very alone. And um, then she started to cry. But then there's also a dream that Alice had where she was sitting in her room and her mother came to the door and it was as if her mother didn't see her
yeah,
and then her mother went away. And they've done this wonderful edit where they have the mother in a session with Medium Ray, and he's walking her through sort of this hypnosis, and she's describing the dream that Alice had.
yeah.
And so I just like, obviously they want us to think it's real. Does that sort of stuff, like, do you get the chills and think, wow, that kind of stuff really does happen? Or are you just like, that's a really nice narrative device next?
Yeah, I'm a big old skeptic when it comes to any of this kind of thing. So
Okay.
I I don't find other than like paranormal activity, I tend not to find like ghost stories scary because I'm like, well, this wouldn't happen. Which I'm the worst kind of horror fan because I'm like
You are.
arms folded. Come on, scare me then. Scare me with your
Yes.
nonsense. And it, but that kind of thing happens in Lake Mungo a couple of times because there's also the dad is talking about how he was in Alice's room and he had the vision of he was just kind of there and then Alice appeared and he like made a
Hmm.
noise and she turned around and told him get out, get out. And then later we see a video that Matthew has shot of that exact same thing. He's hiding in his sister's room filming her because he's a
Right.
creep.
Right.
Uh, um,
Well, do you think, I wonder now if like, I don't know. I'm trying to find the alignment now. It's like, was he like, did he hear the video that Matthew was playing when he was setting up the fake setups? I
maybe.
have to go back and watch with these questions and see if I can line them up because I'll bet they do line up. Um,
I think
because
it's just like
crazier people than us have like traced this movie. So
I'm sure there's a manic Charlie Day red string wall out there just of Lake Mungo. The red string spells out Lake Mungo.
I believe it. I believe
Because
it.
like Matthew goes to the hospital because he's covered in bruises, and that's never I don't
Hmm.
think that's ever really explained. So the bruises just
True.
go away. And like, was he that committed to the bit that he beat himself up?
Ooh,
Like
God, that's a good
I
point.
don't know, but it's not nice to think about. But yeah, so I liked this film. First time, like if you go in knowing what it is, it works well. If you go in
Yes.
expecting, if you go in expecting like Lake Placid 2, this isn't what you're gonna be unhappy. Well, I
No.
haven't seen Lake Placid 2, but if it's as good as Lake
I
Placid, I'd be
can't
unhappy
remember
as
if
well.
I've seen that. Probably
I
not.
didn't like the first one,
But
so I don't think I'd like.
you didn't?
It's a two-act film. It has no
Yeah.
climax. Like they just kind of they ship the alligator back on a lorry, and that's the film ends. I just wanted more. I
Okay.
wanted an ending to that film. It's just like ah,
I just remember being delighted by it. I haven't watched it in decades, probably. I saw it like in the theater, but um, definitely not since.
Brendan Fraser, not Brendan Fraser, Brendan, oh, what's his name?
All I remember is Betty White.
she's great. Oliver Platt, great. Uh, uh, oh my God, what is his frickin' this
Bill Pullman.
Brendan Gleeson. Brendan Gleeson
Oh,
is
Brennan
great.
Gleeson. Yeah.
Bilfin was fine. Uh,
Bridget
Bridget
Fonda.
Fonda's fine. The
God, I
two
don't
leads
remember these people
fine.
being in here.
All of the supporting characters great, outstanding.
Yes.
Give me more Betty White feeding a giant alligator cows
Oh,
after it ate her husband.
she was amazing. That was like her great return, too.
Like,
I remember that was the big deal, like because you'd watched her on Golden Girls, and then suddenly she shows up in Lake Placid, and we lost our
see,
minds.
to me, that's the start of Betty White because I think that's the
There it
earliest thing I've
is.
seen her in. I've never seen Golden Girls. 'Cause
Oh wow! Oh my God, you have such wonderful time
I
ahead of
don't know
you.
if it ever made it to the UK or if it's just because I was born in the
Get
late
out!
80s. But
Wow,
um,
they gotta get on that in the
it's
UK.
a show I've only ever heard people talk about that are American. Uh,
Oh, it's delightful, absolutely delightful.
that's what I hear. Uh, and none of them are in Lake Mungo. That'll be a different film.
True.
So are there any other found footage films that you'd recommend?
Oh God,
Aquatic or not? Uh,
yes. So I am. I like you said, I really loved Searching and I loved Missing. Missing was out recently, or maybe 2 years ago, something like that. Both that same style of on the computer kind of screen sort of thing. I think As Above, So Below is very underseen.
that's on the list
It's
as
set
well.
in the catacombs of Paris.
Yeah, deep.
Um, oh, it's wicked. It's so good. I just totally went into like southern New England with that one. It's wicked good. Um, and then there's an Asian film called oh gosh, it's like Gonjam Asylum, something like that. It's like Gonjam Haunted Asylum. That's what it is. It's Gonjam Haunted Asylum, and it has one of the craziest jump scares you will ever encounter. Um, I do not react to jump scares unless it's a car accident, because for some reason that's apparently my Achilles heel. I will jump off the couch every time. This thing was so good. I laughed myself silly and I had to go back and watch it 3 times
Okay.
because it was just so much fun and I had to pause it to look at it. It was just amazing. Um, one of those kids going where they don't belong and things going bad kind of
Sure.
movies. So check those out.
Okay. Excellent.
Oh, and Hell House LLC. That one's my big one.
That's the other one that you've mentioned a lot. Yes.
Oh, I've been talking about that one forever. And that one's there's 3 movies and there's a prequel. The third movie, meh, but the prequel brings it back. So all of those worth your time.
Excellent. I have no other anything I would recommend. You already know. So yeah, I think like
Probably.
Man Bites Dog is the
I know that one.
The horror mockumentary that is the least known one that I've seen.
Yeah, I talked about that one on Pop Art with Howard.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I think we did Hell House LLC with that one. I think that was the episode I did.
I like the idea that one of those is a popular film and one of those is an art film.
One of them not so much, but that's okay.
But I mean, neither of them is like massive in popular culture. But hey,
No.
you should see some of the films I've talked about on that show. I always come on for Christmas for some reason.
Well, see, I'm the Halloween person, so I love it.
Makes sense.
I like being a constant.
Yes, he
it's
has
great.
a schedule, and I'm happy. He joined me for Mutiny on the Bounty earlier this year.
Oh, very nice.
The 35 one. Anyway, so yes, that's all I have for Lake Mungo. Do you have anything else you wanted to talk about the film?
I think we've covered it. I think we're good.
Okay, so
go see it if you haven't seen it.
Yes, it is on Amazon Prime in the UK. It just popped up. I was all ready to start a Shudder subscription to watch Lake Mungo, and then 2 days later, like between scheduling this podcast and recording it, it cropped up on Prime. I was like, well, I already have Prime.
I love it.
So I'll save the Shudder for some other time. One day I'll watch.
Shudder's good though.
One day I'll watch
Shark
Exploitation. I've never seen it. I've never seen it. It's only on Shudder. One day I'll watch it.
I'm telling you, it's the best $6 a month I spend.
But because you're able to watch more horror films than I am.
And they change them out all the time, and they come out with originals, and they're all so good. Yeah, it's worth it for horror fans, definitely.
There we go. Okay, well, 2 features left to do. How is Lake Mungo similar to Deep Blue Sea? Not very. One of the shortest lists I've come across, but I've made a list as it is. At one point, a body is put on a stretcher. There is a church/religious ceremony. Somebody dies in water. There's a character called Russell who has a horrific backstory. There's a person who talks on the radio for a living. There's a body of water in the title, and there is the exploration of a bedroom and description of a lady after she has died. Because Scoggins,
Amazing.
They're looking in Janice's room for torch batteries, and Scoggins calls her a healthy girl in the creepiest line in DBC. That's it. That's all I got.
Amazing.
7 things. But how deep and how blue is Lake Mungo? Lisa, as I'm sure you know, when I watch these films, I work out how deep all of the action is on screen and how blue the screen is at any given point, and then I put it together to work out the average. Deep Blue Sea is, of course, roughly 14.5 meters or 47.5 feet deep and about 31% blue. Do you think Lake Mungo is deeper and or bluer than Deep Blue Sea?
I'm going to say no on both counts.
Of course. It's a silly question.
It's rather beige. It's rather like washed out, this particular one.
Yeah. So it takes place entirely on the ground. There's a couple of bits that are when they're getting her body out of the water, it's like surface level, and then there's a brief stint in a plane for like 20 seconds. So this works out on average 1.05 meters or 3.45 feet up in the air. So it is slightly higher than Rennie Harlin's Mindhunters and slightly lower than Dangerous Waters, the Saffron Burrows, Eric Dane aquatic film from last year. Blueness, no, it's basically monochrome. It's 2.94% blue, so slightly bluer than Anaconda, slightly less blue than Under Siege. The only time Lake Mungo will be compared to those 2 films. And maybe better than both. Well, I guess it depends what you want. If you want a creature feature, Anaconda. If you want an action film, Under Siege. If you want a found footage horror, Lake Mungo. You can't go wrong with any of those 3. But that will do it for our coverage of Lake Mungo. Lisa, what have you got to plug? Where can the listeners find you?
So you can find me on the Rabbit Hole Podcast Network. I host a book club for Rabbit Hole Podcast. We call it Pictures and Conversations, and we release on the 20th of every month. Our next book is a book called This Is How the Time War Ends. And then for June, we're talking about The Priory of the Orange Tree, which is a big old kitten squisher of a fantasy book. So keep an eye out for those episodes. And I am also on a podcast. So if you'll bear with me, there's a bit of a transition on this podcast. I was on a podcast with Jason Soto called Between the Scares, in which we were going through every movie that Blumhouse or Jason Blum has produced. And Jason has kind of gotten bored. So we have shifted.
But you've got to the horror stuff now. That's the
this
stuff
is
he
what
likes.
I'm saying. We got into a couple of weird ones, and it was kind of like, yeah, let's make this a little more interesting. So now we're shifting, we're pivoting, and we're doing a podcast called The Gift of Horror. And what we've done is we've come up with 26 subgenres of horror. This is right up your alley, Jay.
Okay.
And we've come up with titles to go with each of them. And so the idea is that we're going to gift each other with a title, and then we're going to come back together and we're going to talk about both movies. So our first episode, strangely in the month of May, where there really aren't any, we're going to be talking about holiday movies first. And so I liken this to being, at a holiday party where you have like a white elephant gift exchange. And so we're going to determine who got the lottery tickets versus who got the foot powder and deodorant. So we'll see what that turns out to be.
Okay, so which of those is the bad gift? Because one of them you won't get anything probably, and one of them you get toiletries at least.
Yes, but I mean, I don't want foot powder for Christmas.
Sure.
I don't
Okay.
know.
Fair enough.
I will say that at one of those kinds of parties, I eagerly gave up a pack of condoms for movie tickets. So that'll give you an idea of where my priorities lie.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think I'd have gone the same route.
I am married. I do have a husband. I do have relationships. I promise.
But yeah, movies.
I had my own condoms at home. Anyway.
There are a few things I'd say I'd rather have that than movie tickets. Like movie tickets.
Thank you. So you understand
Movie
me.
tickets, of course.
This is why our spouses like to make fun of us.
Yes, absolutely. Great. And I can recommend. I've got to recommend a book you've talked about on a podcast episode, but I recently finished The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's called The 7.5 Deaths in America because of title changes, which threw me for a while because I saw it come up on the podcast feed, and I went into a shop and it said 7. It's like, is this a prequel?
Is it the wrong one?
Is this the wrong? I had to Google it. I was like, no, there's another book called The 7.5 Somethings of Evelyn Somebody Else.
Well, yeah, there's The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which came out about the same time. So I don't know. What can you do?
Yeah.
But yeah, that author has a new book coming out, like How to Survive a Horror Movie. So I'm really looking forward to his new one.
And the one that he wrote between those two is entirely set on a boat. So I'm going to read that.
There you go.
Because and just read it. So I really liked it. It's like.
Let me know how it is.
Yeah, but 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle is like a Groundhog Day murder mystery. And, and it's excellent. It's confusing, kind of. It goes all over the place, and I loved it. So it's one of the fastest books I've read in recent memory. It takes me a long time to read a book.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I average 2 or 3 books a year generally, and I read that one.
Nothing wrong with it. Still more than most people, so you're good.
It's a lot less than I used to do, and I long for those days. But there we are. Anyway, listeners, you can find this podcast all over social media at Deep Blue Sea Pod. You can find everything Mark does over at Movies, Films and Flicks, and everything I do over at lifeversusfilm.com. My recent stint on Movie Rob Minutes covering the first 5 minutes of Die Hard with a Vengeance is out now as of this recording. I have the first 5 minutes ending with Bruce Willis, the most hungover person in the world. In that film, it's great. I love it. It's my first ever favorite film.
I'm so excited. I'm showing up later in that series, so I can't wait.
Well, that's the one I've been waiting for Rob to cover because Die Hard with a Vengeance was my first ever favorite film. I loved getting a chance to watch it again.
And you got one of the best parts. Like I remember sitting in the movie theater and being so excited that like less than a minute and a half into this thing, there's a giant explosion.
Yeah,
and I was like, this movie's amazing.
It was a fun 4.5 hour recording session that we had one Sunday morning.
I can imagine.
Rob doesn't mess around when it comes to taking up your weekend.
That is true.
I don't mind at all. So yes, that will do it for Lake Mungo. Next week on the show, have I scheduled that far in advance? I'm making the most of my wife not being here and doing podcast next week. We're finally getting to the Rennie Harlin film 5 Days of War that I've said will be next week many a time. But at this point, we've actually recorded it. It is in the bag. It is done. It's recorded. So it will definitely be coming out next week. 5 Days of War.
The highly anticipated episode of Deep Blue Sea podcast.
The film that no one knows exists. It made no money. It stars Rupert Friend in 2011.
Oh my goodness.
Val Kilmer is in the bath in that film.
Oh.
Need I say more?
You have my attention.
We do say more. He comes up, but he's not in the bath for very long. But Val Kilmer is in that film and he's in the bath. So come back next week for 5 Days of War. But as for this show, as for Lake Mungo, thank you once again to my guest, Lisa Leahy.
Thank you for having me. Always a good time. I can't wait to be on a 7th time.
I've been Jake Lure, and I'll Deep Blue see you next week.